The service we experience together tonight is a testament to the power of ritual. We will begin with Havdalah, which uses all of our senses to help us embody the experience of moving from Shabbat into the rest of the week. And then in our Slichot service, we will rise and sit. We'll dress our Torahs in white to remind us of this season of purification. And we'll wake up our hearts with music. We know that there's nothing inherent in standing or sitting or the color white or the sound of the harp that is connected with the process of repentance and return. And yet our ancestors understood the power of ritual to make manifest the workings of our hearts and our souls. And so tonight we are here to learn a little bit more about a relatively new ritual, which we're inviting all of you to join throughout the year. You've all received a gift of a Tzedek Box. This is a particular Tzedek Box. Just to clarify, a Tzedek Box is whatever you make it. You can make a Tzedek Box out of, do they have cigar boxes anymore? I guess not. I feel like I'm dating myself. They were so great. So anyway, you can make a Tzedek Box out of anything. We've also seen the artist Toby Kahn show us his Tzedek Box, and this one was made for us by our frequent collaborator, Ellie Kaplan-Wildman, in consultation with Andrew, with our team, and very excitingly with teams from other synagogues, all of whom are using this box this year for the ritual. So like our ancestors who created the rituals that we are going to engage in together tonight, our very own student rabbi, Andrew Kaplan Mandel, understands the power that ritual has to help us reflect on our actions, to bring greater justice and wholeness into the world. And so we're going to spend a few minutes tonight hearing from Andrew about how we should be thinking about using this box and how it is connected to a rather new holiday, Yom HaTzedek, which is coming up May 4th. How many years have you been celebrating Yom HaTzedek?
This will be our third annual Yom HaTzedek coming up.
That is really exciting.
Yep.
So I love Andrew Kaplan Mandel for many reasons, but one of them is that, like me, he had a career before coming to Central. He is an educator, and I know, Andrew, from speaking to you, that your experience as an educator really made you think about the power of reflection, and that is really built into the DNA of Tzedek Box. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. So I worked for 18 years at Teach for America, and I also received my doctorate in adult learning from Teachers College here in New York. My focus was on transformative learning, which involves the work of critical reflection, the work of engaging in our experiences out in the world and then taking the time to make meaning of those experiences. How often do we go from thing to thing to thing and fail to consider what impact that may have had on us and on the world? And so what I have come to understand, particularly with this project, is that reflection allows us to do, I would say, two important things. I think the analogy I'm going to use is archaeology. So when you engage in a dig, the first thing that you do is that you unearth. And then after you unearth, then you sift the dirt to see what is inside. So when we engage in an action and you then write down on a slip of paper what you've done, don't stop there. I want to invite you to unearth a bit about what has occurred. Slow down the process and think about maybe who you met and how you were feeling and maybe what you learned and what you might consider are the implications next. Do the work of mining how you are in all of your being and put that on the paper. If you are so inclined, you can also have a spiritual moment, a moment of reflecting about the partnership that you hope to invoke in this work that you are doing, and the help that you might need to do it, because we cannot do it all on our own. You put it in the box, and then we have the opportunity on this holiday of Yom HaTzedek, which is on Pesach Sheni. We can talk about that later. That's where you can do the sifting, because now you have all of these records of your actions and your feelings in the moment. Maybe at the time of completing a soup kitchen shift, you noticed that you were feeling a little awkward about interacting with other people, and you decided to stick to making the sandwiches. And you wrote that down at the time. Now it's several months later, and you're opening up your slips of paper, and you may notice some progress that you've made in your own comfort level in being able to engage in that way. Or you may notice a different way of engaging in justice work or volunteer work, etc., that spoke more to you. Or it might lead you to think, I'm not seeing any impact in the work that we're doing in this area, and so we need to shake up our strategy in order to do something more or differently. So that second piece of the sifting allows you to then see patterns and find the gems and move forward.
Great. So you have brought your personal Tzedek box here. Would you like to give us a little tour?
I'm happy to. Before I do, I just want to say a word about the practice.
Yes.
In particular, the quality of humility. That is very important. This is a private thing. This is not a tool to be showing off with, both to others, certainly, and I think Maimonides would agree in his Ladders of Righteousness, anonymity is a very important quality in Jewish giving, but also for yourself. There may be, and I think it's a beautiful thing, to feel a sense of pride or accomplishment in getting something done and putting in your box. And certainly when you open your box, I've often found people say, wow, I did more than I thought I did this year. And that's all beautiful and great. And at the same time, really the purpose, this is not like an arcade game where you get another point for putting something in your box, and the point is to gather as many as you can. The point really is to develop this cycle of action and reflection, and to, yes, increase the frequency, but also the depth with which we engage in justice work. So as I share my own box, and I think we're even going to look inside my box, I'm only doing so for educational purposes. I typically would not open my box in front of others and read what is inside, but as we talk about and try to think about what one might put in the box and how to engage with the box, that's why I'm doing it. So I just want to name that very clearly.
Right, and it's important to know that on Yom HaTzedek, we're not going to call you to the front of the class and ask you to read out your slips. These are for you. So if you do something that you thought was going to be really fulfilling and it turned out not to be, it's okay to write on your slip, wow, that was kind of disappointing. I don't think this is my jam. I'm going to go find something else to do.
Absolutely. That's actually recommended to do that. Please do that. That's a smart thing to do, because then you can review at the end of the year. And I mean, if you're willing, and we'll decide whether we're going to do this in our big setting, but you might do this with a partner, to share your reflections with someone else, your takeaways, your big takeaways from the year, and be able to be pushed a little bit. So for example, just to give one example of a reflection that happened last year, someone I was partnered with is a teacher, and she wrote a slip about how she had planned parent-teacher conferences, and basically no one showed up. And so she's feeling very dejected and disappointed, and had drawn some conclusions about her students' parents and their willingness to invest in their students' education as a result of their lack of attendance. And she shared that with me, and I asked a few simple questions about when that parent-teacher conference had been scheduled. It turned out it was in the middle of the day, and I asked her why she thought parents hadn't shown up. And it really did not take very much for her to kind of climb down from the ladder of inference that she had climbed, and said, oh, well, maybe it could have been scheduled at a more convenient time. And And so that can be useful to have a critical friend when you're engaging in some of the reflection. So I invite you to be as honest as you feel when you're writing things. It's all private. But then to consider, when you're taking stock and thinking about some of your big takeaways, to engage with a trusted friend.
Do you want to talk about Pesach Sheni before we open the box?
Sure thing. So in developing this holiday, this has been a multi-year adventure. Part of the process involved several design events. There was one in Jerusalem that we did. I did one here in New York at the UJA. That was more high flyers. It was like Menachem Creditor, if you're familiar. He sang. Ruth Messenger was there. It was like a kind of a big deal. And people started suggesting when this holiday might be. And there was a lot of opinions. 2 Jews, 3 opinions. So some people wanted the holiday to be totally a new thing, for us to just find some day, like in Cheshvan. There are no major Jewish holidays during the month of Cheshvan, so it seems like a wide open field. Maybe we should put the holiday there.
As a member of the clergy, I thank you for not putting it in Cheshvan, because clergy love Cheshvan because there are no holidays in it.
Right. So there's a vacation aspect to it for sure. Some people said, well, maybe we should do it on a holiday that maybe we just want to spruce up a little bit, like, Shavuot. I mean, what do we really do on Shavuot anyway? We eat some dairy. It's not very exciting. Maybe we can add a symbol of our commitment to Torah on that holiday. And my more traditionally observant friend said, we're very busy on Shavuot. We go to synagogue on 2 days. We don't have time to open your box. We're fine. In many ways, this box is very relevant this time of year. We could have added it as a Yom Kippur practice, and yet we wanted to give it its own pedestal. And so someone, I don't remember who, it was not me, suggested Pesach Sheni. I have to confess, I did not know what they were talking about. So Pesach, Passover, we all know. Pesach Sheni means second Passover. It is written about in the book of Numbers, I think it's Numbers 9, writes that a group of Israelites who had touched a dead body were not eligible to engage in the Passover sacrifice due to their uncleanliness. And so they took a lobbying trip to their representative, Moses, and they engaged in some advocacy. And they said, this is not fair. This is not just. That just because we're engaging in this public service act of taking care of our dead, we don't get to give to the greater good. And so Moses consulted with higher authorities, and an amendment was made to the law, and Pesach Sheni was established a month after Passover as a time for these Israelites to make their sacrifice. Obviously, we do not celebrate this holiday anymore because there is no holy temple in which to make sacrifices. And so it is observed in very small pockets of the Jewish world as a day of second chances, which has a nice, I think, theme to it. And we are reclaiming it as a holiday to celebrate advocacy, successful advocacy, as we look at the work that we have done.
I did not know the whole story of how that came about. I am so excited to know that now. So who is on your box?
Okay, so this is going to get very personal. So this is my grandfather of blessed memory, Julie Kaplan. Julie, incidentally, was 94 when he passed. He was a bar mitzvah at the age of 93. And he was a very simple man, owned a store in the Bronx, would give you the shirt off his back. And he told me, as a very young child, he told me about his experiences in the Navy and how his eyes filled with tears talking about experiencing segregation in the South and seeing his African-American colleagues being denied accommodation. And that just filling him with rage. And that left an impression on me. He was an early teacher of civil rights to me. And then, even more personally, when I came out of the closet to my family and I brought home my first boyfriend, my grandfather took my boyfriend outside to his car And they sat in the car for about 10 minutes. And I was watching from the living room window thinking, what is happening? I don't know if they were going to drive away. I had no idea. And then they get back out of the car, and my former boyfriend comes back in and said, wow. I said, what happened? And he said, your grandfather put in a cassette tape in his car because he wanted to hear you sing. And he wanted me to know that he was dating a very good singer. I did not know my grandfather had a cassette tape of me singing. And I just was so moved by the fact that this was the gesture that my elderly grandfather decided to take to affirm me and my relationship and my identity. So he just has been, for a long time, just a very simple example of what it means to walk the walk. He didn't really talk very much. He just walked the walk. And I find that as a very powerful reminder for me on my box.
So the different sides of the box have different questions behind them. And so this side is the who. This side is, we gave you a picture frame so that you can put a picture of someone who inspires you in your work to make the world a better place. So my Tzedek box at home has a picture of my kids because their activism actually is what gives me hope and keeps me going. It doesn't have to be a member of your family. It could be, a famous politician. It could be anyone who inspires your work.
Yeah, I've seen a bunch of RBG.
Yes, RBG. A member in the front row who I will not name may be wearing RBG earrings today. So she could put RBG in her box if she wanted.
Nice.
Okay, so let us know. Are we going to look in the box?
Yeah, sure. Let's take a look inside just so we see. There's a real diversity of things, I think, in here, which I think can be maybe useful or instructive. It's like a bingo. We'll see what's inside. I'll take out 3, and we'll just see.
He did not write these just for this event. He actually does this as a ritual.
Okay, so this one is I gave money. So a friend of mine is running for Congress. And called me. And he is a state senator in Nebraska, and he's running to be the first representative of color in Nebraska. And I had given to his campaign when he was running in the primary, and he won the primary. So now he's making his second round of calls. And I said, of course I'm going to give you money. Hang up the phone, make your other calls, and I'm so proud of you. This is an easy one. And I'm just so inspired by him. I wrote, it killed me that he had to spend his time calling me. I just said yes and agreed to recruit people to support him. It's very inspiring to me to see people give their all to the world we want to see. So that was a donation one. And so that might reveal that if you, this time of year, are making your donations, that's a beautiful thing to put in your Tzedek box. You can write a reflection about your tzedakah for your Tzedek box. Okay, this one. Oh, okay. So this is, I put in, we had a meeting about the Tzedek box. This is a very meta reflection. So we were imagining, what next year, a year from now, what it might look like if we were successful in this work. And we imagined double the number of partners that we have this year, and another iteration of this ritual. And it also says, a box on another continent. And that's referring to Toby Kahn. His piece is now in the Jewish Museum in New York and in the Skirball in Los Angeles. He has several more iterations of his piece, so we're trying to get them placed in various museums. So you can put aspirations on your slip as well. So that's that one. And then the last one. Okay, so this is just a standard one. Today I sent a note to my representative about the Afghan Adjustment Act, which will help people who came to the United States under a humanitarian label apply for permanent residency. And what I wrote was, looking at census records and seeing how many people sought refuge on our shores. Oh, so this, you need some backstory. I'm a obsessive genealogist, and so I'm always looking at census records from history, and looking at those records and seeing how many people sought refuge on our shores makes me feel like our country would be violating one of its core principles by preventing people a path to residency. It's what makes America special. So it's just me reflecting on why this matters to me. So as you can see, there are a lot of different things you could write on these slips of paper. There's no formula, but hopefully it does reveal that it's more than simply, or can be more than simply recording what you did. That's fine, you can do that, but I want to invite you to give it a little bit more depth, do that unearthing, and then it's a beautiful time capsule in a way of what you were thinking at different points, and then you can imagine opening up all the slips privately at the ceremony for Yom HaTzedek and taking stock of all that you work towards and all that you wish and what it makes you want to do next.
And if you're daunted by the sight of a blank piece of paper, Andrew has created some templates which will prompt you different kinds of ways to reflect, and we have some on the table over there. They're also available on tzedekbox.org. And so you can print out as many as you want. So what about if folks aren't sure what they want to do to bring justice into the world?
Okay, great. So a few thoughts on this. The first is I actually gave a sermon a couple weeks ago encouraging folks to remember that we're not just talking about giving a speech to the mall in Washington. These can be small acts that either have national implications or that have implications in your own spheres of influence. So if you are speaking up on behalf of a neighbor, a friend, you're noticing something in your place of business or in your organization, those are all very appropriate. But I actually want to throw it back to you, Rabbi, because Central in Action has a wealth of various activities here institutionally for us to get involved in. I'm very proud of our neighbors in the neighborhood. I know many of whom are tuned in this evening. The neighborhood is our online community for folks across America and the world who are connected to Central. And they have started a voting rights group, writing postcards to get out the vote. But why don't you tell us a little bit about what's happening at Central in Action?
Yeah, so you should have in your inbox an email about all of our justice work. Exciting things that are happening that are new this year is we are instituting a community fridge on the Upper East Side, and we're going to have lots of opportunities for folks to make and work with local businesses to get fresh food to put in a fridge that people can come to any time of day, so that we're helping to feed our neighbors, which has been a long time commitment, obviously, for Central. I have aspirations to help settle another refugee family this year, and we have a bunch of other volunteer opportunities. If you have any questions, you can always email Rachel Kaplan. Actually, we have a brand new member of our team, Julia Tokotsky, but email anyone. You can email me. I will put you in touch with the right folk, and we will get you set up. And also, there is an event tomorrow night that we want to make sure that you attend.
That's right. So I know a lot of things are happening tomorrow night, but this is a monthly event called the Tzedek Circle. So all of the folks who are engaged in this Tzedek Box work around the country all are invited to a virtual event each month where we have a musical guest and a theme and a special guest and some wonderful hosts. And it's a chance for folks to have a monthly rhythm of getting together, talking a bit about what they've been up to, and tackling a reflective question of the month. So this month, in the spirit of the shofar, we're asking the question, how do we use our voice in a way that people can hear? This is a very important question, particularly this time of year when the elections are coming up and we're trying to convince people of various things. So we have a space for some experts to share their perspective. I'll be sharing a little bit of Jewish wisdom on this topic, and then folks who attend are going to be in breakout rooms to talk as well. And one of our special guests is the executive director of the Atlanta Jews of Color Council, and she'll be offering some specific next steps of ways that we can get involved in her work over the next few months. So that will be happening every month. The schedule is on TzedekBox.org, but if you have signed up for this event, then you are also on our mailing list, so we will send you the announcements of that each month.
Yeah, so the important thing to do to make sure that you stay up to date on everything that's happening is to register your Tzedek Box. So you go to the website to register the box.
Correct. If you go to tzedekbox.org, and I think under where it says a physical box, you'll see the drop down that says register. If you haven't already done so, you get a special certificate, which is kind of like a Shehechianu moment for your box. And then that means you are signed up for all of our news about the events that are unfolding.
And it is not a competition, but I do want to say that we are collaborating with a number of other synagogues. So we want to make sure that we have a good showing for our home team. So you know that for me it is all about winning. So no, actually it's not. It's really just to make sure that you're getting all the communications that we would love for you to get during the year.
One other
Yes.
point is about the when.
Oh, the when.
Yeah, so let's just talk for a moment about what makes sense for you. There is no one way to use the box. Some folks complete an action, like they write their check to the campaign, and then right after that, they write down what they did and they put it in their box. Other people might choose a particular time of the week, like lighting candles for Shabbat was often for some families a time to add to a tzedakah box. That could be a time to take stock of the week, and that being a holy moment, a peaceful moment to take stock of all you've done and put in the box. So I just want to plant that seed for you all to think about what style makes the most sense for you. If you're going to be kind of an immediate writer, that's more my style, or if you have more of this ritual approach, which I think is beautiful.
Now, I know we lured you here with promise of food, and we're getting to that right now. So we know that justice looks like a lot of different things in the world, right? That's part of what your sermon was about. It was about, it can be the big things or, being an upstander instead of a bystander in interpersonal situations. Justice can look like the businesses that we decide to give our business to, or who we decide to employ. And tonight, we're very lucky that justice is coming in the form of banana pudding and other savory and sweet treats that are going to be up on the roof for us. Whenever we gather to share food, we join in, and there is bread involved, we join in motzi, right? Where we give thanks to God for bringing bread out of the earth. But of course, we know that bread does not come out of the earth. There are many, many, many steps that need to happen between the planting of that seed and the growing and the harvesting and the milling. I mean, many hands touch that bread before it gets to you. And so, it's good to think about who is it that we have to thank for what we have to eat. And so tonight, I want to take a couple of minutes to introduce Sharon Richardson from Just Soul Catering, who made the delicious food that we are about to partake in. And I would love for Sharon, for you to just tell us a little bit about Just Soul, and so that we can enjoy the spirit of that you bring to your work.
Yes. Hi, good evening. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Sharon Richardson. I am the owner of Just Soul Catering. I am the person who is a great lover of food and a great lover of people. And when you put those two wonderful things together, you get this amazing soul food company. So we are a social justice for-profit catering company. We make amazing dishes, and we feed the amazing people of New York City who love to eat and never sleep. Um, and so I just want to share a little bit about who I am. I'm also a mother, a grandmother, a wonderful friend, a great listener, very compassionate of social justice work. I met Rabbi Hilly through this amazing person, Evie, who does the suitcase project, and she did that last, what was it, a couple of months ago on a Sunday. I think it was the second annual. And so we met, and Rabbi Hilly came over, and she was just talking about the food and talking about the food and talking about the great work. And so she invited me to cook food for you guys this evening and to just share some words about who I am. So I'm a formerly incarcerated individual. I spent 20 years in prison. I came home 12 years ago, and like my pastor always tells me, my feet hit the ground and I haven't stopped running yet. I also run an amazing nonprofit organization called Reentry Rocks. We were just awarded space in Dumbo. Our grand opening is October 13th. And I just wanted to tell you that Just So Catering and Reentry Rocks are sister entities. We do amazing work for the women who are formerly incarcerated that come home. We run an internship program. And these women are graduating and getting their food handler certificate and working at Just So Catering, starting their own businesses, starting their own nonprofits. They're doing great work. And so I just wanted to share that with you guys. Reentry Rocks, please look us up. It's reentryrocks.org, and that's R-E-entry, E-N-T-R-Y, rocks, ROCKS.org. And if your heart so desires to donate to our wonderful program, please do. And so enjoy the food tonight.